Welcome back to Character Rigging for Beginners. This is part 11, and in this tutorial we're going to be covering the props on our Tesla model here. So they've been hidden before, and we've got everything else kind of set up and ready to go, and we just need to finish up with our props, and then we'll be cleaning up our rig after this. So we'll turn those props back on. And we're going to be setting up some real simple basic controls for each of these props and how we want them to be handled on our rig. Okay, so nothing too extreme or crazy, but we've got goggles, we've got this jet battery pack, these shoulder pads, a bag, a belt, and these two leg straps that we're going to be setting up. So let's start first with our shoulder pads here and these straps here. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to bind this to the character on the same joints and everything, and then we're going to use a great tool called the copy weights tool, and that works in situations like this where you have two separate geometry meshes that are bound to the same joint chain. So the tool is looking for a source and a destination, and it's expecting both of those to be bound to the same exact joint chain. So if they're not, then it's not going to work, and it's not going to like it. So let's get started. So we're probably not going to have anything on our shoulders, and I'll switch this over to FK here, because as our shoulders rotate down, we don't need it influenced at all by that. So we could, if we were making this much more higher end, we would probably be adding a lot of extra joints for the shoulders that could manipulate on top that we could then control and stuff, but we're just going to keep it real simple. So, all right, we're going to start selecting our joints, and I like to select from the children up to the parent, because if I select the bottom of the chain first, it highlights everything, and it can be hard to tell what you've selected and what you haven't when everything is. So a lot easier to tell when you're going from the bottom of the chain or the bottom of the hierarchy up to the top. So we're going to select our two clavicles, left and our right clavicle, and our upper back and our mid back, and we might be sharing some here with our lower back. So with those selected, we'll shift select those shoulder pads, and we'll go up to underneath our rigging tab. We're going to go to skin, and underneath bind skin, we're going to use selected joints, and we're going to keep this just a classic linear method as opposed to anything else, and closest distance is fine instead of the geodesic voxel. So, and the reason why is because these joints are not inside of the geometry here. They're not inside the shell of that geometry, and so the geodesic voxel won't work super great. So we'll keep it like that, and we'll hit apply. We'll close that, and now that is a part of it. So we spent all this time on our skin weights here on the body, and so we're going to use those as much as we can. So we're going to select the Tesla body here and shift select the shoulder pads, and then we're going to go back up underneath our skin options, and we have this copy skin weights right here. And it gives you all these wonderful little options. The default is usually just fine. If you have a character that has, say the modelers have taken it and they've had to redo a bunch of stuff and they've changed the topology, and the vert count's way different, but the UVs are all exactly the same. Well, you can use this UV space to copy according to where the UVs are in that. So, and then Switching between these will give you different various results. If you're not happy with one, you can undo and check out the other ones to see what you can get out of that. So we're just going to copy these straight across with the default settings. So we'll hit copy, and that will have pasted that on. So now as we start moving this around, this is all moving. Okay. And same on this side. So you'll notice there's a couple spots that aren't exactly 100% great. You know, this, you know, we probably want this, the whole shoulder pad, all set to just be on that clavicle and not to be bent, since this is a pretty solid piece here. Yeah, there's not going to be too much flexing, so certainly not as much as we're getting here. So yeah, there, you know, the copying is great. It gives us a lot from it, but it's not going to give us everything. So you'll still have to go in and paint some of those weights here. And go into our left clavicle and add that on. Okay. But I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Hopefully you have had great practice skinning and painting weights with the beginning of the Tesla model. So this is just more time, and you don't want to see me go through all of this again. So I'm just going to leave this as is for right now, and just be happy with that. So, but generally, we get some pretty good results here. You know, we twist around, the straps are moving with it, which is nice. Yeah. And so all this is moving pretty well. Yeah, we got some wonkiness here, which we could easily just go in and hit F8 to get to our vertex mode and select all these verts and grow our selection by hitting Shift and period. And then we could open up our component editor and go over to the smooth skins, and we can say, hey, we want this all on that right clavicle here. So we can change this, scroll all the way down here, and just type in 1. There we go. And that's put all the weight there. And close that. Okay, and then we would probably have to go in and adjust these as well, as they've probably not got the best weights. Right? Yeah. So it's okay, but yeah, we don't want them penetrating like that. So we want to keep it all together. Okay, but you can mess with that and get it how you want and how best to make it look. But generally, that copying did a pretty good job. So hard to complain about what we got here. Okay, the next things that we'll do are also kind of skin items here. We've got these armbands here. We're just going to select that and shift select the shoulder joint. See, this is all in between that shoulder joint. So not a whole lot that needs to be done once we do our initial bind. So we'll bind that, and now that will be attached to our shoulder. I can move that. See, ta-da, looks great. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with these leg straps. They're all going to go, these are both going to work perfectly just on that hip. So we will skin that and do the same thing to this. Bind skin. Okay, so now when we move our leg, those straps are going to move right with it. And yeah, they really don't have any other influence on it, so it makes it real nice for that. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing with our belt here. but there probably will be some influence on our hips and our pelvis and probably our root joint there. So we'll select those, shift select the belt, and do the same thing. We're going to do skin, bind skin, and then we want to copy those weights over, right? We like our weighting here. Let's get as much use out of it as we can. So this is the button here for the copy skin weights, right? It looks like the two pieces of paper that are identical to each other. So as opposed to going up here all the time, you can go to your rigging tab and just use the copy skin weights button. Okay, so we've copied that, and we can kind of see what happens when we start moving her around. And it's all right. You know, you might want to go in and adjust some of this since the belt gets really wide and kind of shrinks up. And obviously, it's not going to do a whole lot of that. But so there's always some adjusting, but this minimizes the amount that you have to do to get it to where you want it to be. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing with our goggles here. And we can either constrain it by just selecting our head joint and shift selecting those goggles and doing a parent constraint. Right. We'll change the interpolation type over to shortest on our parent constraint node that was created. So we can do it like that. You know, if we were going to take this to, you know, full cinematic type version here, we'll probably have a joint for each side of the goggle, perhaps one or two around the band, so that we could pull it down over the eyes, you know, adjust each side, you know, give the opportunity to be able to, if she pulls on one side, and we'd see this one coming out and this one kind of being held back, and we'd have a lot of control over that. So, but we are just going, you know, real simple with our props. And constraining it is just fine. If you don't want to do the constraint, you certainly don't have to. You can just skin it. And we'll do the bind skin on that. Okay? And it has the same effect, right? Move our head around, and the goggles go with it. Okay, perfect. So we have got a lot of this set up, but we want some controls for our bag and for this power pack. So we're going to make a couple controls here, and we're going to start just by creating a NURB circle here. So I have a button here. If you don't have it, just go over to your Create window and go to your Curve tools, or sorry, your NURBS primitives, and go down to the circle, and we'll just create a circle there. And then that, of course, creates the history there in our channel box. So we'll click on that, and we'll go down, and we're going to change this from cubic degree to just a linear. So, and with 8 sections, it makes an octagon, and we're going to double that to 16. Okay, and then we'll go and we'll hit F8 to get to component mode. And my CVs are not showing up here. Let's make sure. Back here, and there they are. Okay. All right, so, and what I'm going to do is I am going to select basically every other one of these all the way around. And then I'm going to hit R. I'm going to scale this and make that shape. Okay? All right, perfect. So we're going to group this to itself. Control G, And then we're going to have two of these, so we're going to duplicate that. So group 1 and group 2. And the first one we're going to be calling the bag underscore C for control underscore GRP for the group. And then the control itself will be called just the bag underscore C for the bag control. And then our other one we will call our jet pack underscore C underscore GRP for group. And then the control itself will be just the jet pack underscore C for control. Okay, we've got those set up. All right, and let's start with our bag. Okay, I'm not going to go to, again, if I was going all out here, I'd probably have a little joint chain set up here to deform this, but I'm just going to have it deform on just this level, and we'll get a lot out of that, not as much as if we put in the whole joint chain, but enough to get some overlap and some weight on it. So, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to select on it, and we're going to hit insert, and we're going to move this pivot point up to kind of where it would be attached from. So right about here. On that, and we'll hit insert again. Okay, so that places that at the right spot. And then we want our control to come up and be at the same position. So we're going to click on our bag, and we're going to come over, and in our outliner, we're going to control select the bag control group. And then we're going to go up to constrain, and we're going to do a parent constraint, but we want our maintain offset off. And we'll hit apply. So that puts that in the spot that we were wanting it. And we're going to delete that node that was created here in our outliner. That parent constraint node, we're going to delete that. So we have this control here. Then I'll select it again, and I'll go back to component mode, so F8. And I'm just going to kind of position this just a little bit more. Yeah, probably fine. Okay. So, and now we'll select this and shift select our bag, and we'll create a parent constraint. Okay. We can have that with maintain offset on. All right, and now we have control here. Yay. Okay, so this control is going to follow our hips here. So as our hips move around, we want it to come with it. So we are going to take that bag control group, select that whole thing, and shift select our pelvis control, and hit P to parent that. So now it's going to follow around, which is great. But one thing that you'll notice here is when we rotate it down or rotate it up, it's obviously moving like it should in its parent status, but we have to counter animate that to get it to kind of come down and stay and keep the weight true to what we would normally see. So to eliminate some of that counter animation, what we're going to do is we're going to set up an orient constraint on the group of this control so that we get some of that for free. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to find our world orient group that we created way back when, and we're going to select that, and then we're going to take that group. We need to find our group here. So by selecting that control and hitting up, that gets to its parent, which is that group, and we can come over here to our outliner and hit F to frame that, and there it is, it's right there. So we're going to take our world orient group, we'll select that first, and control select that bag control group, and we are going to create an orient constraint right here. Okay, so there we go. We see the blue channels come in, tells us there's an orient constraint, and now we get this behavior. So it kind of feels like the weight is always there, right? Which is great. However, when we turn it this way, you know, well, not only does that look really ugly, but, you know, it feels like it should be rotating on that y-axis. So we're going to go back to that parent group of our bag control, and we're going to select on our rotate y, and we're going to break that connection. Oops, that was x, y. There we go. So break that connection there, and now when our character rotates this way, the bag follows and rotates appropriately, and then we can do a little salsa dancing, and the bag stays pointing down. Right? Same when we move like this. So yeah, that gives us a fairly good natural action there, and then we don't have to do too much counter animating on that. Okay, so we have that all set up. We still have full control over this. We can move it, and we're pretty good. Okay, so next thing we will work on is this jetpack. And again, we're going to follow the pretty much the same exact process as our bag here. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our jetpack, power pack there, and then control select our jetpack group. And then we're going to go back up to our constraint options for our parent constraint. And we're going to turn off maintain offset again and hit apply. So that snaps our control into the exact proper position. And then we're going to come in and we're going to delete that parent constraint node. We don't want the pack controlling the control. We want the control controlling the control, if that makes sense. Okay, anyways, we'll select this, our control, and I'll hit F8 so I can get to those control vertices and just drag a selection over all of them, and I'm just going to position it out a little bit. Okay, so I can see it a lot easier. And F8 to get back to object mode, and now I'll take this control and shift select our jetpack there and click back on the maintain offset and hit apply. Okay, that sets that up, and we have this motion here. Now, if I was, you know, to do this at a lot higher of a level, I would add 1 or 2 joints here in the power pack. And then what I would do is I would add that joint to the hierarchy of the body, and then I would skin the power pack to that joint, and also I would use that to also skin a portion of these straps, these back straps right here, all these ends, to the jetpack here, so that I would then have the option of when I move this, these straps would pull back like they were attached, and move that around or rotated it, and all this geometry would come with it, and then possibly even making a joint that you could skin those two, and another joint that just the pack was skinned to, and then I could set up a control that controlled both of them if I wanted it to, or controlled just one if I wanted to just move the pack. So I could have 2 different controls. So if I wanted to move the pack like this and not the straps, I could. And if I wanted to move them all together, then I could do that as well. All right, so we'll move that back here. And then this group will parent right to this upper back control. So that's all part of the hierarchy there. And you rotate that. It's going to come with it. That looks good. Okay. So that sets up that. Oh, let's go in and change the color of these. Okay. We'll go into the attribute editor and we'll select our shape for our control and go to object display, drawing overrides, enable overrides, then come down and then we can select our color. We'll just make it a nice yellow. Okay. And we'll do the same for our bag control. We'll change that to yellow as well. Okay. One more thing we'll do here. You know, the bag is cool, but let's say you have instances where you don't want to show the bag. So we're going to set up just a real quick visibility option for that. Okay. So to do that, we don't want to connect this visibility of our control to the visibility of our bag, because if we turn off our control and it will turn off our bag, then we don't have an easy way to select that control again to turn our bag back on if we need it to. So we're going to create another attribute on that control. So we'll go select that, we'll click edit, we'll come down and we'll add an attribute, and we're going to go, we'll call this our bag underscore viz, and this is going to be a boolean, so it's on or off, and we'll click add, and then we're going to select our control, shift select our bag, and go up to our windows, general editors, and we want our connection editor right here. Okay, so our bag control is on one side and our bag geometry is on the other. And we're going to scroll all the way down to where we see the bag viz and select that. And then we're going to find the visibility of our object and we'll select that. And you can see it turned it off automatically. We'll close that. And if I turn it on, it turns on, turn it off, it's off. So that way the visibility of my control doesn't turn on and off, and I still have a way to find my bag and turn it on or off no matter what state that is in. So, okay. And that is pretty much it. We could do the same thing and create visibility switches for, you know, the armbands, for the shoulder pads, for jetpack, the leg straps, you know, any of those we could really have switches for. The goggles we could have a switch for as well. Really up to you. And even with this skinned, I could still set up a visibility. So one nice thing about skinning is that it doesn't lock out the visibility. So I could turn that on and off if I wanted to. So in which case I would probably just put an attribute on my head control and just call it goggle viz, and then I could turn it on or off there. Okay. All right. That is it for the props. So real simple setup there. Nothing much new that we haven't already covered and gone over, but yeah, it's nice to have our character all done and in and have all these props set up so they're ready for animation. So hope that helps and good luck.